Hey, you the new lot? Yeah, reporting as ordered. Where you from? Oh, Belladon. Yeah, what about that guy? I don't know. Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and once again, I'm not taking anything seriously. This model I have here in pieces is a Tyranid hormagaunt from the Gaunt group of Tyranids. It's a joke made every so often to connect the Gaunt's ghosts with the Tyranid Gaunts to make a Gaunt's Gaunt, but until now I don't think anyone's actually made one. And I'm the sort of nutter to give that a go. Now, I'm not a Tyranid player, and so I don't have Gaunt models littering my pile of opportunity, so after rolling around eBay for a month not finding any for less than £6, I got an offer from Carmine Commander, who yeeted one over to me. So, big thanks to them, and post in the comments a thank you if you like. I quickly built up the model in an as intended way first, but I've got a bit of work to do to drive this pun home. To remake this gribbly monster into one of the Tanith first and only, I'll need 3 things: a cloak, a lasgun, and an Imperial Guard disguise. Tackling that one at a time, first with the cloak. I thought about some of the pre-made cloaks that I have, some really nice ones that I like, but none of them really fit the quite unhuman-like torso of the Nid. So, Milliput back again, and my old cloak mould. Which also isn't quite the right shape, as it's designed for human torsos. But Milliput is quite pliable, that's kind of the point. It is a modelling clay. So I only took a rough initial shape from the mould, tearing it in 2 so that I could lay each half around the spines on the Nid's spine. Spines. Whilst the advantage of Milliput is that it's a pliable modelling clay, that softness also causes some difficulty. You can't really shape texture onto the outer surface, as whenever you press down, the whole thing collapses. And this is why I sculpt in 2 parts. This first part is just to get the general shape, clean up the edges, and get all the pieces in the places I want them to be. One place I can actually sculpt some surface detail is around the neck, as there's solid plastic underneath all of this, so I can press in and get that texture. So I tried my best to make some shallow ripples as if the fabric had been crumpled and wrapped around. And I'll let that first batch of Milliput fully cure before I do any more work on the model, otherwise I'll ruin it. And I went off looking for a way to have a Tyranid hold a lasgun. Some kind of clawed hand that can grip, rather than a single blade-like claw that the original hormagaunt has. I went back and forth between a few different options, and I finally came to decide on this hand from the Necromunda Escher's box that I looked at a little while ago. Previously I turned one of the Wild Runners into a Tanith Trooper, and this time I'm just taking a hand from the Death Maidens. This hand has a similar bony, spiky look to the Tyranids. It's not a perfect match, but it's the best of the options that I have. And I went back and forth on just how to attach the hand to the arm. Do I put it right at the end just by removing the single claw, or do I take off all of the smaller Nid claws in the wrist, and do I reposition the thumb? After much ado and back and forth, I did end up getting it in place and all stuck together, and I think the effect works pretty well, but you can judge that at the end of the video when it's all painted up. So let's go back to the cloak for round 2, the surface textures. In previous videos I've shown how you can roll a strip of Milliput and press it into the surface to create the types of folds I like to put on cloaks. Pressing down both sides of the roll to fix it into the first layer of Milliput, and then gently pressing up into the middle to make this kind of ridge. But this time I decided to have a little extra fun with the spines. I thought, with my endless sense of humour, that it was just too funny for the spines to have ripped out through the cloak, sticking out, to miss up on that opportunity. So I took a couple of torn pieces of Milliput and pressed them into either side of the spines. And I wanted to particularly keep that torn look, as it sort of looks similar to a torn fabric. And then I went round and added a dozen more folds and wrinkles, filling in the surface with the texture I wanted and trying to smooth out everything else as best I could. With the cloak completed and the lasgun worked out, I just needed a disguise. A foolproof, undetectable, perfect disguise for this Tyranid so that nobody would realise it isn't an Imperial Guard trooper. Ah, of course, the helmet. The Cadian sprues come with a loose helmet. So I set about carving the head and the helmet so that they sit together in the most believable, disguised, best way I could manage. And this took forever for some reason. Probably because that helmet is absolutely tiny and the head is slightly bigger than the helmet that I'm trying to put it into. This project overall took a very long time to complete. The hand-holding the lasgun took a few hours, and the cure time for the layers of milliput, and now this difficult and fiddly process of getting the helmet designed for a human onto a space bug's head. But I stuck with it, I persevered, and I got the thing set. And wouldn't you know it, it's a perfect fit. You'd never know this was a Nid. And so, on to painting. And I won't spend too long here as I've painted so many Gaunt's Ghost models in the channel, and this one's exactly the same. Exactly the same. Except where it wasn't. Such as the main body chitin, black like the Ghost's armour, but with a much stronger use of a black wash to try and make it a bit more shiny. And all of the spines I painted up in blue. This blue colour is a colour I've used on a few of my Tanith so far, so it ties together quite nicely. But rather than just a wrap or a headband, I went into some fine panel lining with this blue into all of the joints and the open muscle panel things, which gives the model as a whole that slight different coloration to the rest of my Tanith models. And finally, of course, the camo pattern on the cloak is my same spreckly fleckly pattern that I've come to really like. And I'm really happy with how the cloak in particular came out on this model. Given that I only taught myself how to sculpt so I could make cloaks for the ghosts, I've gotten to the point where I think they look pretty good. For line infantry models, I still have some practice to do. I want to really go down the sculpting route someday. And that is pretty much that. All of the effort over the course of, well, several months because I've been putting it off, but just to have a Gaunt's Ghost pun finally realised in model form. And it fits nicely amongst my other sculpted cloaks, and no one will ever know that there is not a perfectly normal Imperial Guard model in this perfectly normal Imperial Guard squad. So thank you very much for watching, and thanks again to Carmine Commander for sending me this model. I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and I'll see you next time.